Petticoat Junction took a sleepy little train stop and somehow turned it into one of the coziest places on TV. When it premiered in 1963, it brought viewers to the Shady Rest Hotel along the Hooterville line where Kate Bradley, played by Bea Benaderet, was trying to keep everything running with a whole lot of patience and probably not enough help. She had lazy but lovable Uncle Joe, played by Edgar Buchanan, her three very different daughters, glamorous Billy Joe, brainy Bobby Joe, and tomboy Betty Joe, and of course, that scene-stealing dog Higgins. Together, they somehow kept the hotel, the Cannonball train, and their quirky small-town lives chugging along, mostly on charm, optimism, and pure Hooterville magic. Over 7 seasons and a whopping 222 episodes, Petticoat Junction became one of those shows that just felt like home. If you're a Gen X kid who grew up catching reruns after school, you probably still remember the cozy comedy, those front porch chats, and the cannonball whistle rolling through Hooterville like you were right there waiting at the station. But behind all that small-town charm, train tracks and water tower baths, there was a whole lot going on. We're talking almost cast actors, real family stories turned into TV plots, some genuinely heartbreaking moments, and a shared classic TV universe that was basically built within walking distance on a Hollywood backlit. So today we're digging into 15 surprising facts about Petticoat Junction. Stick around for number 15, because once you hear how close the Hooterville world actually was behind the scenes, you'll never picture it the same way again. Number 1. The real hotel behind the Shady Rest. Petticoat Junction may look like a small-town fantasy, but its beating heart came straight from lived experience. The Shady Rest Hotel was modeled on a very real place from Paul Henning's family history, thanks to his wife Ruth. As a child, Ruth spent summers visiting her grandparents in Eldon, Missouri, where they operated the Burroughs Hotel, sometimes known as the Rock Island Hotel. It wasn't glamorous, but it had the kind of warmth that stays with you for a lifetime, with hearty home-cooked meals and prices that made it a natural stopover for traveling salesmen and railroad passengers. Just like the Shady Rest, the Burroughs Hotel sat right beside the tracks of the Rock Island line. The rhythm of daily life was tied to the railroad. People, news, and half the town's stories arrived by train, a dynamic Petticoat Junction would make central to its charm. The idea that the hotel and the line were inseparable didn't come from a writer's room. It came from Ruth's memories and tales passed down by her mother Alice, who had grown up in that world. On screen, that history was transformed into the porch-sitting, guest-welcoming warmth of the Shady Rest. The hotel's easygoing atmosphere, the sense that time moved a little slower and the way neighbors drifted in and out all traced back to that Missouri boarding house. The real Burroughs Hotel was torn down decades ago, but its spirit was built into every frame of Petticoat Junction. Number 2. A smash hit right out of the gate. Petticoat Junction didn't have to wait to find its audience. From the moment it premiered in September 1963, the series was an outright ratings phenomenon, landing as the 4th most-watched show in the entire United States. Not 4th on its network, not 4th in its time slot, 4th overall. America had already embraced rural comedy through the Beverly Hillbillies, Paul Henning's other hit, so viewers were primed for another dose of small-town warmth. Petticoat Junction arrived with many of the same ingredients: family bonds, rural setting, and gentle humor, but with its own flavor. A widowed mother running a modest hotel, 3 daughters at very different stages of life, and a little train that felt like part of the family. Audiences sampled it and stayed. By the end of its first season, Henning had 2 shows in the national top 5, and Petticoat Junction held at or near the top 20 for its first 4 years. The success was so clear that CBS doubled down on Hooterville, expanding the world with Green Acres in 1965. At its peak, Henning's brand of gentle, unhurried sitcom storytelling dominated Tuesday nights and helped define what television comfort viewing looked like for an entire generation. Number 3. The many names before Petticoat Junction. The title feels so natural now that it's hard to imagine the show being called anything else, but getting there took experimentation and more than one false start. Paul Henning's first idea was Ozark Widow, a name that captured Kate's situation as a widowed mother in a rural community, but leaned too heavily toward melancholy. It sounded closer to a somber drama than a warm ensemble comedy. Next came Whistle Stop, a direct nod to the show's railroad connection. Charming as the concept was, the title suggested a show about trains more than about the family at the heart of the shady rest. Then there was Dern Tootin', perhaps the most colorful rejected option. Folksy and playful, it leaned all the way into the down-home humor Henning loved, but risked pushing the series into broad caricature before a single scene aired. Petticoat Junction solved all those problems in a single phrase. It was whimsical, visually suggestive, and tied directly to one of the show's signature images, those petticoats hanging on the water tower. The title hinted at both femininity and place, capturing the mix of family life and small-town routine in a way none of the earlier options could manage. Number 4, a cheeky opening hidden in plain sight. For a show remembered as pure old-fashioned family entertainment, Petticoat Junction smuggled a surprising amount of playful wit into its opening credits. The sequence worked on 2 levels, simple for children and lightly suggestive for adults paying attention. Visually, the opening became iconic, with the 3 Bradley sisters bathing in the shady rest water tower and their petticoats hanging neatly on a line outside. For young viewers, it just looked like country ingenuity. For adults in the early 1960s, the sight of women's undergarments fluttering on screen at prime time had a gentle teasing quality. The theme song added another layer, famously including lines about the cannonball's lots of curves. Officially, creator Paul Henning insisted those curves referred strictly to the winding bends of the railroad. Technically, that reading holds up, but the lyric lands just as the Bradley sisters are front and center, and for adults paying attention, it was a wry little wink. Children remembered the catchy tune and the water tower. Adults caught the wink, the show aimed their way. It's part of why that opening still lingers in people's minds decades later. Number 5, the Cannonball, a real train with a wild screen life. The Hooterville Cannonball is as important to Petticoat Junction as any human character. The production didn't fake the train. For exterior shots, they used footage of an actual locomotive, Sierra No. 3, a hard-working engine from California that became a true Hollywood veteran. Fans with sharp eyes have spotted it in High Noon, Unforgiven, and Back to the Future Part 3. Within the show, the Cannonball gave Hooterville its unique rhythm. The line wasn't connected to any larger railway system and seemed to exist in its own bubble. The engineer and conductor treated timetables casually, stopping to fish, chat, or simply enjoy the day. Characters weren't using the train to reach big cities. They were using it because it was part of daily life, a moving front porch as much as transportation. That gentle unreality added to the show's charm and made Hooterville feel like a place where the modern world moved a step slower. Over 7 seasons, the Cannonball carried guests, gossip, and half the plot lines in and out of the shady rest. Sierra No. 3 starred in major films, but on Petticoat Junction it found its warmest role, the neighbor who always came by. Number 6, Uncle Joe's surprising life before Hooterville. On screen, Uncle Joe Carson looked like a man who had settled into that porch chair long before the shady rest appeared on television. The theme song teases him as moving kind of slow, and his endless half-baked schemes fit the portrait of a small-town layabout perfectly. Off-screen, though, Edgar Buchanan's life looked very different. Before he ever faced a camera, Buchanan was a practicing oral surgeon who ran a dental practice in Eugene, Oregon, alongside his wife, who was also a dentist. His path to acting began through patients who were involved in local theater, and the interest quickly turned serious. By the late 1930s, he relocated to Hollywood, and within a few years was a familiar face in films, often playing judges, small-town characters, and talkative old-timers. On Petticoat Junction, he became Kate's uncle, forever dozing on the porch and dreaming up new angles for easy money. Viewers assumed he was a generation older than Kate, but in reality, he was only 3 years her senior, born in 1903 to Benatarets 1906. That proximity underscores how completely Buchanan disappeared into Uncle Joe, and the contrast between his off-screen work ethic and his on-screen indolence is a big part of what makes the performance so satisfying. Number 7, the no-name dog who became Benji. At the Shady Rest, the family dog didn't even have a proper name. Characters simply called him Dog or Boy. But behind the scenes, That small, expressive terrier was Higgins, one of the most accomplished animal performers of his era. Higgins entered the show in the second season, and his presence quickly became a running gag, with Kate and the daughters adoring him while Uncle Joe complained the flea-bitten hound was eating them out of house and home. Higgins had been discovered in a shelter by trainer Frank Inn, who recognized an unusual intelligence and presence. Under Inn's guidance, he mastered nodding yes or no on cue, coughing, untying shoelaces, and playing dead with convincing commitment. In 1974, Higgins starred in the feature film Benji, carrying an entire movie largely through silent reaction and movement. It became an international success and launched a franchise, turning Higgins into a genuine movie star. In a fitting coda, Edgar Buchanan came out of semi-retirement to co-star in Benji alongside his old companion, and the two shared the screen one final time. It's a quietly touching end for a shelter rescue who rose from just dog at a small-town hotel to one of cinema's most beloved canines. Number 8. Sam Drucker, the man holding a universe together. Long before television executives coined phrases like shared universe, Sam Drucker was quietly stitching one together from behind a general store counter. Played by Frank Cady, Sam became the connective tissue between the Beverly Hillbillies, Petticoat Junction, and Green Acres. He ran the general store, operated the post office, delivered mail, served as justice of the peace, and on Green Acres somehow found time to edit the local paper. What made him truly central, though, was his attitude. Where other characters schemed and stumbled, Sam stayed grounded, responding to every oddity with patient tolerance. Cady played him across well over 100 episodes each on Petticoat Junction and Green Acres, plus memorable turns on the Beverly Hillbillies. Characters wandered freely between shows, the Clampetts visited Hooterville, and Hooterville locals turned up in Beverly Hills, and through it all Sam's store functioned as a kind of hub. In an age before formal crossovers became programming strategy, the organic blending made the Hooterville world feel genuinely connected, and Sam Drucker was always the reassuring constant at the center of it. Number 9. The ever-changing faces of the Bradley sisters. One of Petticoat Junction's most distinctive quirks is something many viewers only notice on rewatch. Over 7 seasons, 6 different actresses cycled through the 3 sister roles. Billie Jo underwent the most transitions, with Janine Riley originating the part, Gunilla Hutton stepping in after 2 seasons, and Meredith McRae carrying the role through the remainder of the series. McRae's interpretation subtly reshaped the character, shifting from boy-crazy comedy toward a more mature, career-oriented focus. As an accomplished singer and the daughter of Gordon McRae, she brought musical ambitions to Billie Jo that later seasons leaned into directly. Bobby Jo also changed noticeably, with Pat Waddell's bookish, reserved portrayal giving way to Laurie Saunders' sunnier, more scatterbrained version. Through all these changes, one sister remained constant. Betty Jo, played by Linda K. Henning, appeared across all 7 seasons without being recast. As Paul Henning's daughter, she had auditioned under the name Linda Kay to avoid accusations of favoritism, and she ultimately married Mike Miner, who played her on-screen love interest, turning their fictional romance into a real one. In a series where faces changed often, her steady presence helped anchor the entire Bradley family dynamic. Number 10. Why it took so long to put B. Benaderit at the center. By the time Petticoat Junction premiered, Benaderit had already built a career most performers would consider complete, logging thousands of radio and television episodes and earning the trade press nickname Busy Bee. Yet it wasn't until Hooterville that she finally became a leading lady. For years she thrived in supporting roles, playing neighbors, relatives, and sidekicks with impeccable timing. She voiced Betty Rubble on the Flintstones for 4 seasons and played cousin Pearl Bodine on the Beverly Hillbillies, where Henning recognized her capacity to carry an entire series. Petticoat Junction was built with her at the center. Benaderit approached Kate Bradley with genuine responsibility, shaping her as a layered, strong-willed mother whose humor never undercut her authority. When CBS picked up the series, she reportedly remarked with quiet pride, "Isn't it nice after all these years? Golly, my own show." Industry recognition followed, including a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame and a Genie Award in 1966. Petticoat Junction didn't create Benatar's talent. It finally placed it where everyone could see it. Number 11. BEA's illness and the show's turning point. For 4.5 seasons, Benatar's Kate Bradley was the unquestioned heart of Petticoat Junction. When serious illness struck, it reshaped the entire trajectory of the show. A spot on her lung had been found as early as 1963, but by late 1967 her condition required action. Surgery in November revealed the tumor was inoperable, and she began 6 weeks of radiation therapy, missing 10 episodes. Kate's absence was written off as a trip out of town, and temporary figures like Aunt Helen and Cousin May stepped in to support the Bradley girls. Benatar returned briefly for the season 5 finale, visibly thinner, but determined to appear. When season 6 began, her cancer returned. She completed only 2 full episodes before her health declined too far to continue. In her last credited appearance, only her voice is heard, with a body double filling in from behind. On October 13, 1968, Benatar died at age 62. The series brought in June Lockhart as Dr. Janet Craig, a worldly doctor who rented a room at the Shady Rest rather than a replacement mother figure. She brought new stories and fresh guidance, but the texture of the show had fundamentally changed. The loss of Kate Bradley marked the beginning of Petticoat Junction's final phase. Number 12. Sharon Tate's Almost Billy Joe. Among the most striking what-if moments in Petticoat Junction history is the casting story of Billy Joe Bradley. For a brief window in 1963, Sharon Tate was set to play one of the 3 Bradley daughters, and then she was gone before viewers ever saw her. Contracts were completed, wardrobe fitted, and publicity photos taken. Then the show's sponsors raised an objection. The widely repeated account holds that a major advertiser learned Tate had posed for semi-nude photographs in Europe, images that would later surface in Playboy, and pressure to remove her was intense. Other accounts suggest Filmway's chief Martin Ransohoff simply felt she wasn't yet ready for a major role. Either way, Tate was let go and Janine Riley stepped in as Billy Joe. Filmways kept Tate under contract and gave her smaller roles, including a recurring part on the Beverly Hillbillies. The episode illustrates how much power sponsors and studios held in early 1960s television, and how a single decision could redirect an entire career. Number 13. Benatar and the Ethel Mertz that almost was. Long before Petticoat Junction, Benatar stood at another crossroads that might have changed television history entirely. She was Lucille Ball's first choice to play Ethel Mertz on I Love Lucy. The two had already built a strong comic partnership on the radio series My Favorite Husband, where their timing together was precise and instinctive. When Ball developed I Love Lucy for television, she envisioned Benatar as her neighbor and confidant. But Benatar was already contractually committed to the Burns and Allen television show, and that agreement made leaving impossible. Vivian Vance stepped in and created the Ethel Mertz generations now know. The near miss raises a fascinating question. If Benatar had become Ethel, would she ever have been available for Kate Bradley? Instead, that contractual lock sent her down a road that led through years of voice work and eventually to the Beverly Hillbillies and the Shady Rest. The Ethel Mertz that never happened is a fascinating piece of alternate television history. Number 14. How the Rural Purge Ended an Era. Petticoat Junction did not fade away because audiences abandoned it. Its ending was part of a deliberate network overhaul later dubbed the Rural Purge. By the late 1960s, CBS sat atop a lineup full of rural hits including the Beverly Hillbillies, Green Acres, Mayberry RFD, Lassie, and Petticoat Junction. Ratings remained strong and followings were loyal, but network executives saw a demographic problem. The shows skewed older and more rural, while Madison Avenue increasingly wanted programming aimed at younger urban consumers. When Fred Silverman took over programming in 1970, he pursued rapid transformation rather than gradual adjustment, canceling nearly all rural and traditional family programming regardless of ratings. Petticoat Junction, already affected by Benatar's death, became one of the first casualties, airing its final episode in April 1970. CBS then introduced All in the Family, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, and later MASH, programs that tackled urban life and social issues with a contemporary edge. For viewers attached to Hooterville's gentle rhythms, the shift felt abrupt. They weren't just losing a favorite show. They were watching an entire style of storytelling be declared out of step with the times. Number 15. Hooterville was only steps away on the lot. One reason the Hooterville universe felt so naturally interconnected is that behind the scenes, it genuinely was. Both Petticoat Junction and the Beverly Hillbillies were produced at General Service Studios, today known as Sunset Las Palmas Studios in Hollywood. Paul Henning took full advantage of that layout, with all three productions working out of neighboring sound stages on the same lot. The Beverly Hillbillies built the Clampett Mansion close to where Petticoat Junction housed the Shady Rest, and when Green Acres joined in 1965, it slotted in right alongside them. Shared Hooterville sets like the Cannonballs Depot could be lit and shot for one series one day and another the next. Bea Benaderet could wrap a scene as Cousin Pearl and walk a few feet to become Kate Bradley. An actor could finish one character and step into another series world minutes later with no elaborate scheduling. The lot worked exactly the way the towns did on screen, with everything within walking distance. The closeness of those stages is what made the closeness of those shows feel real. Thanks for watching these 15 strange and often moving truths behind Petticoat Junction. Whether it was the real hotel behind the Shady Rest, the almost cast Sharon Tate, or the way Bea Benaderet's illness reshaped the series that surprised you most, these stories remind us why Hooterville still feels like a place worth returning to. If the Cannonball Whistle, Higgins' rise to Benji, or Kate Bradley's quiet strength stirred up memories of watching reruns after school, hit like, subscribe, and share this with a friend who always felt like Hooterville was a second hometown. And until next time, keep watching.